We'll
All
move
right,
on
running
to
backs.
running backs.
Chuba Hubbard going against Atlanta. You got him as your RB19, 6 spots above the experts. You also like J.D. McKissic more than the experts. You got him at 30. The experts actually had him at 40. So that's a pretty big leap.
Yeah. So it's pretty efficient running back rankings here, too. So I kind of had to dig deep. I actually want to add instead, I'm much higher on James Conner in my last run of rankings. I'm +5 on him. So people are starting to rank him more in the fringe, like RB2 range, like running back 14. So probably still a starter. I have him right there in the top 10, though. I know Chase Edmonds might play, but even still, I think James Conner is going to be a beast with or without him. As we talked about on the usage show, 14 touchdowns on the season, hasn't been below 12 points in 6 straight games. He's been a top 20 running back for all 6 of those games. So I have no doubt he's going to be right there in your top 10, which he's been in 4 of the last 5 weeks. So I have no doubt that will continue to roll for James Conner. I'm definitely higher on him. I actually feel good about that. The other ones, Chuba Hubbard is more so, I know I'm not ultimately that high on him rest of season because they get the Bills, they get the Bucks, and I don't think those are going to be Chuba Hubbard games. But Atlanta, as bad, that defense is so bad that I think they'll have every opportunity to completely pound it out with Hubbard. They fired Joe Brady. I think he's still going to get himself a good job and really flourish somewhere. Matt Rule's an old school, wants to, he even said it when he fired, I want to run the ball 30 times a game. Well, who are you going to do that with at this point? It's not Ameer Abdullah. You might use him in the passing game, but Chuba Hubbard is certainly your main hammer. And the Atlanta, that's the one matchup left on the schedule where I think it could lend itself to hammer him. The last time they faced off, he had 24 carries. He had about 18 fantasy points. No problem ranking him right inside my top 20. I got a lot of questions on him in sit starts and almost always tell you guys to play Chuba. I think he's a great play. And then McKissic, I think that's just going to be a game script where he gets a lot of work underneath. And that's why I'm lower and transitioning to lower on Antonio Gibson.
Right. Your counterpart on that in that backfield, Antonio Gibson, you actually have your RB10, and that's 4 below the experts. They actually like him up at 6. Also, James Robinson at the Titans. You got him as your RB24, 5 below the experts. You also are a little bit down on Jamal Williams going against Denver, RB26, 4 spots below the experts.
Yep. And Gibson, ultimately, it's just a matter of, I think, game flow. He is still a little bit susceptible to that. Now, this is risky given the fact he's seen 24, 19, 29, and 23 carries since the bye week, and he's looked damn good doing it. This is of his last 4 weeks. Very solid. But this is me banking on the fact that Dallas has a great offense and that they get up early, and then that does not bode well for Gibson, who has been game script dependent. And maybe they do play him on more passing downs as they have been across these last few games. But Dallas, for all their faults, they're actually a very strong run D, certainly with DeMarcus Lawrence back. I don't know. In my gut, in those multiple 20-point days, 21-8, 2020, I think this is going to more resemble that 8-point day he had against Carolina than it will those 20-point days he's had in those other 3 weeks. Then James Robinson, it's just more so Urban Meyer, right? He is so hesitant. Maybe this is a squeaky wheel situation because you even have Trevor Lawrence at this spot.
Yeah, he said something.
James Robinson needs to be on here getting the rock. So it could be a squeaky wheel situation and Robinson goes off and has himself a monster day. I don't know that I want to bank on that, though. 11, 11, and then 2 in his last 3 games. 16, 21, 56 running back ranking in those performances. And the fumbling concerns, Tennessee, though, pass funnel defense as well. They've been very solid against running backs, bottom 7 in terms of points allowed there. And then they were very generous to wide receivers. And ultimately, they're going to probably have to abandon the run quickly because they just suck, the Jacksonville Jags. So
Sure.
he feels no good. I don't know. It doesn't feel good to me. My gut doesn't feel good about James Robinson. And then Jamal Williams, we talked about this on the usage show. He weirdly ran less routes than Godwin Ganuba. I don't know how to say his name, type of guy.
Don't worry about it.
And exactly. And now you're facing Denver. So when you get the early down work against a beatable defense like Minnesota, you can do okay. He racked up 8 to 9 points. But now you get a tough run D, and then you don't see the receiving work at all. I could see him having himself a 4 or 5 point complete dud, and he's ranked there as a very startable RB2. I'm sitting here saying he's very fringe RB2, and there's a lot of options I have above him.
Hail Marys, a lot of these are grouped together because these are stash and C's. Jeff Wilson, 20%. JaMycal Hasty, 18%. Both obviously contingent on Elijah Mitchell, which is leaning towards a not play. Also, Khalil Herbert, 25%. Interesting. And Ameer Abdullah, who you did touch on already, going against that terrible Atlanta defense, only 10% rostered.
Yeah, so all 3 of those the first 3 names, Hasty, Wilson, and Herbert are all just stash and sees if the starter is going to be out. It does look like Montgomery practiced today despite dealing with 3 separate injuries at this point. He's more so, even if Montgomery's playing, I'd like to have Herbert stashed because, one, the Bears have nothing to play for. If this injury worsens at all and they have any risk of like long-term damage to Montgomery, you got to imagine they'll shut him down, given how much of a key cog he is to their future. And
Sure.
we've seen Herbert thrive whenever used extensively. In fact, having 100 yards against Tampa Bay shows you how talented this kid can be. And they have 3 bottom 10 matchups, 3 easy as cake matchups following that this week in your fantasy plays off. This week is a little bit trickier, but then they have the Vikings joke defense. Then they get, hold on, I'm just pulling it up real quickly. I know it's the Vikings, the bottom 12 defense. Then you got the Giants, 8th most points allowed to the running backs, and Seahawks, the 2nd most points allowed to running backs. So very easy schedule. We've talked about David Montgomery being a league winner because of the schedule. Well, should he ever get shut down? Should he worsen his injuries this weekend? Khalil Herbert would be that league winner. So he's the most intriguing stash, in my opinion. Hasty might be the most immediately usable stash, given that Wilson's knees flaring up, that Elijah Mitchell is concussed. So a top 13 matchup, the 13th most points allowed by Cincinnati. I could see Hasty having himself, 15 to 20 touches and having himself a decent day this week if he should be the main guy. So definitely a worthwhile 1-week plug in and hold here, even though I like Herbert more long-term. But if neither of those guys end up panning out because everyone else around him is in, I do think Ameer Abdullah could have himself a solid day. I like Chuba. I already talked about, I think 20-plus carries is coming in a top 5 matchup, but that doesn't mean Abdullah might not catch a receiving score or have 5 receptions in this game. He's been running far more routes than Chuba. I think it's 33 since he joined compared to 13 for Chuba. It's definitely a far more engaged receiving role. So I could see 4 to 5 PPR, just reception points there. How much damage as he does is one of those turn into a touchdown. Decent Hail Mary, in my opinion, for sure, as 14% rostered.
Must watch is the Tennessee backfield going against the Jags. Interesting, could be. Also, Josh Jacobs assuming the role as the total lead horse due to injuries of Drake and other things. Also, Javonte Williams. We're going to see a takeover. Or is it going to be right back to a running back by committee? Melvin Gordon says he's going to play, so we'll see. And also the Rams, after Sony Michel had a big game, they're going to ride that horse. They're going to go back to Henderson. We're going to see a committee. What's going to happen,
We don't know, and we will find out for sure. But Tennessee, I think a league winner could emerge from that backfield. But now that McNichols is back healthy, how does that impact everything? We will see. How good has Josh Jacobs been a feature role? He's been a top 8 running back in the back-to-back weeks. I think that can continue to roll the rest of the season. Can Javonte, did that performance earn him a 70% work share, or is this right back into the gross committee that we all dread? And last but not least, what is Sony's big game? What do McVay's comments mean? We don't know, but we'll find out on Monday night what this backfield will look like moving forward. It's crucial to watch. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments, check out some more videos, and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.